right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. And welcome everyone to City Hall. It's such a great day to be here. I want to thank our Department of Transportation Director Sharkey, and his team for coordinating today's meeting, but also for the phenomenal work that they do each day in the city of Baltimore. Also, I want to thank Secretary Ports and all of our great state partners for being here with us today. And we know that Baltimore City DOT has enjoyed a great level of partnership with MDOT and MTA over the past several years. The MTA provides transportation to hundreds of thousands of Marylanders each day, many of them who are Baltimore City residents, students, and workers and visitors, as I once was when I caught MTA buses each and every day to and from school. With Baltimore being our largest city and a key city along the eastern seaboard, high quality transportation we all know is a must. And as our world changes, so must our ability to safely and efficiently provide transportation to our stakeholders. The city of Baltimore, we applaud MDOT's commitment of $166 million in additional infrastructure investment JOBS Act funding being directed to MDOT MTA primarily for functions aimed at investing in the core service area. I know the hard work that is happening is going to make a difference, and the regular meetings between MDOT MTA and our DOT really have been crucial to maintaining this great level of collaboration, resulting in significant wins like the $50 million raise grant for the East-West corridor improvements. And we know that DOT also recently collaborated with MDOT MTA in successfully applying and receiving a $6 million raise grant for the redevelopment of Penn Station in the heart of Baltimore City, a transit-oriented development effort involving multiple players, including city and state agencies and private developers. We know that TOD should be further prioritized by us, all of us together. And as I wrap up, I want to say that I know that the future of transportation is bright, as City DOT and MDOT MTA are currently collaborating to apply to the upcoming and remaining Connecting Communities grant with a strong focus on Route 40 through West Baltimore, what we all know affectionately as the Highway to Nowhere. And our collaborative efforts are currently targeting $2 million for a plan and study that will integrate the community's vision for this area. We know that this work is vitally important to end disparities that disproportionately affect far too many Baltimoreans. And through MDOT MTA's core service area, and though it's been long established within the Baltimore metropolitan area, the agency's most expensive capital project continues to be the Purple Line service in the D.C. suburbs. More transit dollars must be invested within Baltimore City and our surrounding counties and area. The safe, reliable, and efficient operation of MTA is critical to both Baltimore City and the state of Maryland's economic growth. And I want to thank everybody again for being here today, and it is my pleasure in hybrid form to introduce you all to our DOT Director, Director Sharkey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do thank you for introducing me, and thank you for your continued support of transportation, DOT, and transportation at large in the city of Baltimore. Definitely been a leader in this, especially since you've been on the council. So thank you so much. My remarks will be brief. I do just want to thank the MDOT and the rest of the business units or modal units here. So this is also exciting for all you transportation geeks out here. If you're a transportation geek, this is super exciting. It's fun just to talk transportation, right? So exciting day. Again, want to follow up about how the great partnership that we have with the multimodal units, especially MTA, how great Holly has been, and as well as the partnership. And it's been shown with these winning of grants and the continued work. And we also just want to continue to focus on transit in Baltimore and the difference between we are looking for more transit spending in Baltimore, and especially to focus on the east-west and the north-south transit studies, so that those can move forward and come to fruition. It's very important for a city that has less than 30% of households, or 30% of households do not own a car. So just very important, and it's also the main way in the future that we can become sustainable. So thank you, and I will hand it off to Secretary Jim Ports. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Steve. It's always a pleasure working with both of you. Again, for the record, my name is Jim Ports. I'm Secretary of Maryland Department of Transportation. And first of all, thank you for inviting us to provide an overview of our 6-year Consolidated Transportation Program, which is known as the CTP, as you know, which covers years 2023 through 2028. I did bring the whole MDOT team today so that we can get used to working with everyone. First, I have Tim Smith. He's the Administrator for State Highway Administration. The Maryland Transportation Authority Executive Director, Will Pines, is next to him, and we'll rotate the folks out as we bring them up. No stranger to any of you, Holly Arnold, MTA, or Mass Transit Administration, and from the Motor Vehicle Administration, another well-known person, Chrissy Nizer. And by the way, personal privilege here, Chrissy was the chair of the International AMVA organization, which is American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. They just had their conference in Baltimore, which ended late last night. And she's still here today. And I'm going to say, I'm not going to take her thunder away from her, but I will tell you that the organization that she chose to have charitable donations given to is in Baltimore. And I'm not going to take their thunder away. I'm going to let her say the rest, but I'll tee it up for her. But I think you'll be very proud of what she did and who she chose and what good it's going to produce. So with that, we have from Maryland Aviation Administration, Fixed Base Operations Director, Harold Fowler. It's over here. And from the Maryland Port Administration, Executive Director Bill Doyle. Also joining us from the Secretary's Office, Regional Planner Dan Janowsik, and State Legislative Officer Melissa Ihorn. Okay, first I want to thank you for taking time to visit with us in Mako. I think we had a very productive meeting. Mako is a great opportunity for us to connect and understand how we can work together and develop solutions to your local challenges. Over the years, I think we've, again, developed a great working relationship. I can't emphasize enough that we're not only available just 1 or 2 times a year. You can pick up the phone or email us anytime. We may all make ourselves available to you and Steve and all your other folks. And I'm proud of the entire team. We're very accessible, and we want to see things get done. So since our meeting at Mako, we've already addressed several key issues in Baltimore City. We're pleased to allocate $10 million in toll credits to help provide your matching dollars needed to secure federal IIJA funding. That was one of the issues you brought up. So we're going to do that. This funding will assist with providing maintenance to key access roads to the Port of Baltimore, and specifically Keith Avenue and Broning Highway, which we all know needs a lot of work, right? So we're here to partner with you and help you out on that. And then we'll work with you as you get your plans and design together for those projects. We also have good news on your request to piggyback on SHA maintenance and equipment procurement contracts. SHA utilizes statewide contracts procured by the Department of General Services. Baltimore City and other local jurisdictions can use active contracts for materials, equipment, and rentals. To inquire about specific contracts, contact Department of General Services, Office of State Procurement, and we'll be happy to work with you on that. If you have any problem, let us know. We got a good line to them. We'll help you out. I'm sure you got a direct line also, though. But now I want to take a minute to look back over what we've accomplished working in partnership with you and other counties from Western Maryland to Eastern Shore. Thanks to Governor Hogan's record investments in transportation and infrastructure, we've accomplished a great deal over the 8 years. With Governor Hogan's leadership, MDOT immediately began moving forward on top transportation priorities in every region across the state. We've improved 100% of the state highway system, making our roads and bridges much safer and less congested. We expand several busy state roads into 4-lane divided highways like Maryland 32, 404, 113, and which reduces the number of collisions and helps traffic flow. Of the 69 poorly rated bridges we identified in 2015, all of them been replaced or repaired, and we're continuing to address aging infrastructure. We now only have 26 poorly rated bridges, and that's a historical low, but all those are being funded for construction and design. Also, our list of accomplishments is the switch to all electronic tolling. We'll be doing the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel very shortly. The move is keeping traffic flowing and easing congestion, and of course helping the environment and air quality. Speaking of tolls, very important reminder, time is running out to pay your unpaid tolls. If you have any late fees to get waived. Back in February, we announced a customer assistance plan to help all people help themselves, and we've given customers 9 months to get that waiver and pay their tolls without incurring the waiver, or I'm sorry, without incurring the fees. On September 1st, we started a 90-day countdown. In fact, with 31 days in October, we're throwing in an extra day, but the grace period ends November 30th. Today, as of today, we have 75 days left for people to act to waive those extra fees. So if you haven't already done so, tell your neighbors, friends, family members, whomever, to go ahead and do that immediately, because we're not interested in having people pay their fines. We're interested in just having to pay their toll. That's it, right? So let's try to work together on those issues. And turning to transit, our systems are also more reliable thanks to Governor Hogan's historic investment to lower maintenance-related interruptions. As our infrastructure governor, he kept Maryland's port and airport open for business throughout the pandemic, and continued investments at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport and Maryland's Port of Baltimore. At BWI, we're actually handling more cargo than Reagan and Dulles combined, which is about jobs, right, Mr. Mayor? And when the container ships are backing up in other ports around the country, there were no delays here in Maryland's Port of Baltimore. The ILA is doing a fantastic job. And in fact, we welcomed all ships that were going to be diverted to other ports to come here. And we'll hear about some of these other milestones when they all come up. But I want to stress that Governor Hogan has delivered more projects and more money to local jurisdictions through the Highway User Revenue Program during this past legislative session, and I know you know this. He worked across the aisle to get a great deal for local jurisdictions, increasing the amount of HUR by 33%, more than the original bill that was proposed, and that's a dramatic increase to help fund your transportation priorities. And it'll help provide local matching funds to capitalize on funds that will be available through the Jobs Act or the IIJA. MDOT's here to help you navigate with the federal process. And I also say, Mr. Mayor, there's going to be, I mentioned this at MACO, but make sure everybody else hears it, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for discretionary grants just for local governments that we, the state, cannot put in for. Corinne, that's on you. And Steve. But, so I would encourage you to look at some of those. And like I said, that brings us to IIJA. I've been asked for the last 9 months what we're funding with IIJA. This is what we're funding, right? The CTP. And it's not all new money. As some people say, it includes our regular federal formula funds, including projects that were in our 2022 through 2027 CTP. It's just another name like Ice-T, Safety Lou. It's just another name for our formula funding. However, there's about 20% extra formula funds, and during the next 6 years of the draft 2023 through 2028 CTP, Maryland has programmed $1.3 billion in new IIJA funding, $178 million for airports. Mr. Mayor, I have to tell you, I'm very impressed. You had it nailed exactly. $166 million for transit and $966 million for highways. These allocations are based on the federal formula outlined by the IIJA by the federal government. So we're working closely with our federal partners on specific criteria to program additional projects for both transit and highways, and this funding will help with long-term state of good repair. And it's important to Governor Hogan and to me to advance at least one new priority project in every county and Baltimore City in the form of new highway, transit, or aviation projects. So There are potential for some additional projects and discretionary grants, as I mentioned, that are part of IIJA, and we're exploring those. And as always, we're here to help you with those, because working through that federal process is a little crazy sometimes. Shifting the details in the CTP, I could start off by telling you that this is the largest transportation budget ever. The draft CTP for 23 through 28 totals $19.9 billion. It's nearly $2.2 billion more than 22 through 27, and which was about $17.7 billion. As noted earlier, this draft CTP includes the large increase in HUR funds, which you can spend on local projects. This 33% increase delivers hundreds of millions of dollars more, thanks to the agreement between Governor Hogan and the state legislature. And that increase of nearly $2.2 billion in this draft includes $1.3 billion in IIJA funds. The rest is improved revenue estimates post-pandemic and MDOT's higher share of the state corporate tax. This CTP devotes 35% of the budget, $6.9 billion, to system preservation. That's about $800 million more than last year's CTP, and these dollars are critical to achieve and maintain the state of good repair for our roads, bridges, rail, port, and airport. Just as important, this CTP allows our transportation system to contribute directly to Maryland's economic recovery. That's a balance we need, maintaining our assets, delivering major projects, and planning for the future, and how we deliver a network that's safe, reliable, accessible, and inclusive for all Marylanders. I think you heard me talk a little bit, Mr. Mayor, at Mako, about the ports supports employees. And I want to say it's been an honor to work with our dedicated team at MDOT of MDOT employees who deliver projects and services every day. I've been highlighting their hard work, went into through a video series, I should say, again called Port Supports Employees, and we show Marylanders what it's like to be in a crane operator, 165 feet up in the air. I'm scared to death of heights. It was awful. You'll never see that again, by the way. And then how our state highway crews do everything from filling potholes to picking up litter along busy highways. And Mr. Mayor, I told you I was going to talk some trash, right? And I am going to talk some trash. Litter along our highways and in our city is unbelievable, and it's got to stop. And it costs us serious dough. About $60 million over the last 8 years. That's about an average of $8 million per year that we spend picking up trash. And $3 million of which is spent right here in the Baltimore region. And think about that. That's a total waste. We could be spending that money on projects instead of picking up litter. And so at MDOT, we launched a program to encourage people to stop this waste. In other words, to put waste where it belongs. And like I said, I brought some reusable bags. There are probably some back here that we're handing out to people. What happens, you got the prongs that come down on your headrest. You snap these in place, hangs on the back of your seat, and you can put your trash in there and dispose of it properly when you reach your destination. And so this is a really important program I think we want to work together on. And I know our folks are reaching out to your office so that you and I can talk a little trash face to face. That should be fun. We need your help. Please help us spread the word. We want to put trash into these bags instead of on our roadways. And if we all do our part, we can stop garbage and $60 million from, get ready, literally, going out the window. So I'm sure SHA Administrator Tim Smith would love it if his crews could focus on actual road work and use that $60 million for other projects. I'm sure Tim would agree. And now I will turn it over to Tim Smith, Administrator for MDOT SHA.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Director Sharkey. It's an honor to lead the SHA team and be with you again this year. As both the Mayor and the Director highlighted about vulnerable users and folks other than motorists, we too at State Highway are interested in that and protecting our vulnerable users beyond motorists. And the way we kind of do that is kind of the Secretary of Ports mentioned is over the past year we've been progressing some projects, and some of those right here in Baltimore City. So we typically partner with the Transportation Alternatives Program. So a couple of those projects are involved constructing the Inner Harbor crosswalks and bicycle way along Pratt Street. improving the first mile of American railroading leading to the B&O Museum, as well as the design of Greenway Trails Network. And then next spring, we have 2 safe routes to school projects with the city. One of those involves sidewalk and ADA improvements at Pimlico Elementary, as well as similar improvements at Hartford Heights, Hilton, and also Tillman Elementary School. So we're trying to help folks get to schools safer. And then, and this month, we also worked with Baltimore City, and you received $675,000 for design and safety improvements near Cecil Elementary School. So while we might not have a lot of roadways in the city, we're trying to collaborate and work with you on those items. So as the Secretary mentioned, we are trying to make the best use of our IIJ dollars, and I know Director Sharkey and I have been communicating about those opportunities. Secretary Ports highlighted that. Happy to collaborate and work with them, Director Sharkey, on the kind of improving the pavements near that area. And just in closing, I think Secretary hit on it, but just the collaboration and coordination, we don't do it just in meetings like this. It's kind of those every day, and we build those relationships and build that trust and really are able to accomplish the missions of both of us. So with that, I'll turn it over to my teammate, Will Pines at MDTA.
All right. Thank you, Tim, and good afternoon, Mayor and other distinguished state and city elected officials. As the Secretary mentioned, time is running out on MDTA's civil penalty waiver grace period. Please take advantage of the plan now by paying unpaid video tolls either in a one-time payment or incrementally between now and 11:59 p.m. on November 30th. No, that's specific, but we want to be clear. For every video toll transaction paid in full during the 9-month waiver grace period, the related civil penalty is also waived. Toll bill referrals to Central Collections Unit and the MVA have ceased temporarily and will resume on December 1st. Starting December 1st, customers will be responsible for the full amounts of all unpaid tolls and civil penalties, which will be due based on the printed dates on those notices. Good news, our call and web chat wait times are much lower than before, so customers can easily reach us now to resolve any tolling questions or needs. You should have received a letter encouraging you about alerting your constituents to start making those toll payments now, so please don't wait until it's too late. Moving on to some project updates, the MDTA is focused strongly on our system preservation program. A project example to repair and rehabilitate the roads and bridges on I-695 at Sparrows Point near the Bear Creek Bridge is expected to begin next year. Although all electronic tolling is in effect statewide, some work remains at the tunnels to remove the former toll plaza. Construction is underway to convert the Fort McHenry Tunnel to highway speed all electronic tolling this winter of 2022/23. Preliminary engineering is also underway to bring highway speed all electronic tolling to the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel in 2026. A new automated lane closure system for opening and closing lanes during nighttime and off-peak maintenance in the Harbor Tunnel is also expected to be operational this fall. And we also are working on a project that's south of the Fort McHenry Tunnel to use traffic systems management and operations solutions to improve traffic and safety. We're currently studying the benefits of interchange reconfiguration, part-time shoulder use, and active traffic management. This will improve access to and from Baltimore City and the port by addressing Maryland's 13th worst corridor for truck traffic based on the most recent mobility report. For those of you traveling on the Bay Bridge, we've just completed our open houses for the $28 million Bay Crossing study, the Tier 2 NEPA, those completed this week. And the governor announced the funding for that Tier 2 in June, following Federal Highway Administration's April approval of the combined final environmental impact statement and record of decision for that Bay Crossing study, Tier 1 NEPA. The 4 to 5 year Tier 2 NEPA study will build upon the Tier 1 findings and identify specific alignment alternatives with what we refer to as Corridor 7. The 2-mile wide corridor that runs for the 22 miles between the Severn River Bridge in Anne Arundel County to the US 5301 split in Queen Anne's County. Please visit our baycrossingstudy.com website for more information on that project. And I want to thank you and turn it over to the star of our show today, Holly Arnold, with our MTA.
Thank you, Will. So good afternoon, everyone. As Will said, I'm Holly Arnold. I'm the administrator for the Maryland Transit Administration. And I'm really glad to be here with you to report that it's an exciting time to be working in transit in Maryland. In June, MTA celebrated the 5-year anniversary of the Baltimore Link launch, which brought high-frequency transit with buses arriving every 15 minutes or less to the region. In addition to a more efficient transit network, Baltimore Link set the stage for dozens of innovations and enhancements for the rider experience. Most notably, real-time GPS capability through the transit app on all of our fixed route service, enabling riders to know when your bus or train will arrive. Implementation of nearly 13 miles of dedicated bus lanes, reducing travel times by up to 25%. Installation of transit signal priority to speed up travel times by up to 22%. And mobile fare payment with Charm Pass. And last year, we launched Charm Flex 3- and 10-day passes in response to those riders who need more flexible commute options. MTA continues to make significant capital investments in state of good repair projects to ensure that the transit system remains a safe and reliable transportation option for the region. The Capital Needs Inventory Report, which was released in July, details our progress in reducing the state of good repair backlog from 16.2% of all assets in 2019 to 14.4% now. Expected levels of state and federal funding will continue to reduce that number to 5.4% by 2027 and 1.3% by 2031, meaning that we're going to meet 98% of those state of good repair needs. We've identified a number of items for funding in the draft CTP between now and 2028, including over $400 million for bus replacements, including zero-emission vehicles beginning in 2025, $400 million for new metro, subway, railcar replacements, $185 million for MARC train locomotive and railcar overhauls, $237 million for MARC train track and guideway, $236 million for metro subway and light rail guideway, $51 million for metro subway station upgrades, and over $200 million for elevator and escalator overhauls on our metro subway. Additionally, we're going to utilize the $166 million in additional IIJA funding to support our state of good repair and enhancement projects for light rail, metro subway, MARC train, and local bus, including the zero-emission vehicle transition. MTA is also preparing for the future of transit. We've invested $65 million in our MARC Riverside heavy maintenance facility right here in Baltimore. It's nearing completion and will enable us to enhance our locomotive and railcar maintenance capabilities, which helps us support major transit infrastructure improvements along the Northeast Corridor and future expansion of our service into Virginia and north to Newark, Delaware. In June, we announced, as part of the Regional Transit Plan implementation, the East-West Corridor Feasibility Study. And just last week, we released the North-South Corridor Feasibility Study for public comment. We look forward to continuing to partner with Baltimore City, Baltimore County to implement these efforts and move forward on the 30 strategies identified in the 5-year RTP action plan, of which over 20 are underway in this year. In September of last year, we published the agency's strategic plan for the next 5 years, called Rebuilding Better, Committed to an Equitable Transit Future. And we've been working to implement the priorities identified in that plan to improve the transit experience and system reliability for our riders by focusing on technology, communication, and collaboration. As ridership continues to grow and travel patterns change, we remain consistent in our unwavering commitment to our riders. As part of this commitment, the draft CTP dedicates $43 million in fast-forward customer experience enhancements across the transit network to fund new dedicated bus lanes, bus stops and transit hubs, including equity-focused ADA improvements, new wayfinding, and bike and shared mobility improvements. These investments demonstrate our priority to accelerate rider-focused initiatives and projects that provide meaningful benefits to the communities we serve. Partnership with Director Starkey and Baltimore City has really been the key to our success in receiving federal grant awards that advance our key transit projects. In 2021, we partnered to receive the $22 million East-West Priority Corridor RAISE grant to improve transit options from Fox Ridge to CMS, and we're now working together to advance design of those projects. And then again in August, we were awarded another RAISE grant, $6 million, towards the Baltimore Penn Station Connections grant, which will enhance transportation connections in and around Penn Station, which is a crucial hub. We're now working with Amtrak to advance discussions on replacing the aging BMP tunnel with the new Frederick Douglass tunnel, and we hope to finalize an agreement soon. Last but not least, MTA is aggressively transitioning towards a zero-emission bus fleet, investing over $436 million for our zero-emission vehicles program, bus pilots, and bus procurements. And we expect the first buses in that program to arrive mid-next year. We also make a significant investment in local transit in Baltimore City, providing over $2 million in operating capital grants to support the Baltimore City transit operations, including the Charm City Circulator and the Harbor Connector water taxi. And I'll close my remarks with noting, as we announced yesterday, the MTA is pleased to award $136,000 for Baltimore City's statewide Transit Innovation Grant, our STIG program, for their project to replace 3 existing temporary bus bulbs that were piloted along Hartford Road with permanent structures. So thank you, and I will now turn it over to Christy Nizer at MPA.
Thank you, Holly, and it's certainly a pleasure to be with you here today. As Secretary of Reports indicated, we are really pleased and honored to welcome over 1,020 motor vehicle and law enforcement personnel, frankly, from around the world to Baltimore over last week. We got them out into the neighborhoods of Baltimore, got them over to Oriole Park, and in addition to the great economic development that happened over last week, so many said they were coming back to Baltimore to visit again and really found some of the many hidden charms that we all know as local residents, and so that was great. In addition, there is a history within AMVA of providing for a charity that the chair gets to choose. This year, I want to make sure we gave back to the Baltimore community since we are hosting here. So we chose the Living Classroom, and just the attendees alone contributed $22,500 to Living Classroom. So it was record-breaking, and we had James Bond there, and also many of our attendees got the opportunity to go over and visit the great things that we all know Living Classroom does. So very proud of that as well. At MBA, we continue to focus on providing that premier customer service both in and out of our branches. One of the great ways we've been able to do that is our IT modernization project known as Customer Connect. In December 2021, MBA completed the final phase of Customer Connect, combining multiple legacy systems into one system. It enables us to link driver and vehicle accounts, and both the customer as well as our own agents have access to a complete view of the customer's record in one single profile. It also allows us to offer more online transactions than ever, and approximately 74% of all of our customer transactions are now done outside of that traditional transaction with an agent and a customer. Customers can do transactions through My MBA, which is their own unique individual account, which will show them everything related to their MBA business, including when their driver's license or ID card might be up for expiration, any letters we've sent them, anything related to their vehicle registration. If they're a CDL driver, it'll show them their medical certificate. It's a great source of information that they can help them enable to track their MBA business. MBA remains appointment only, allowing us to serve customers more efficiently. Approximately 75% of our customers are now being served within 15 minutes of their appointment. In fact, our most recent week, we were 10 minutes, 47 seconds. So we're really excited about the great level of customer service we're being able to provide to our residents. In May, Maryland became the second state to launch Maryland Mobile ID and Apple Wallet. Maryland Mobile ID is a voluntary, secure, digitalized version of your Maryland driver's license or ID card, available in the Apple Wallet or Apple Watch, and offers even more security and privacy benefits than the physical card because you can control the information that's being shared with the end user. In addition, for those Android users, we do have a solution coming soon, and we're actively working on that. We'll be happy to share more information as it becomes available. We continue to focus on maintaining compliance with Real ID. At this point, we are now 87% of Maryland residents who are Real ID compliant. We just heard from DHS this last week. Nationally, the number is 51% of Americans who are Real ID compliant. So Maryland is clearly well ahead of that. I'm also really proud of a partnership that we started in 2021 right here at our Baltimore City branch office, working with the Department of Health. We now provide Maryland-born residents with a copy of their birth certificate. So if they come to the MBA and they're trying to get that ID card or their driver's license and they don't have that identity document, they can actually purchase a copy of their birth certificate right at the MBA branch. We don't charge any additional fee for that. They get to leave with the benefit of having a birth certificate they can use for other purposes, as well as their driver's license or ID. So far, just in Baltimore City alone, we've helped 1,500 customers that way, and we have now expanded that to other locations as well. MBA and its partners also remain committed to developing solutions to save lives on our roadways. Last year, we lost 562 people on Maryland roadways, which was a decrease from 2020, and Baltimore City's numbers actually went down as well. But we continue to see the same contributing factors that include speed and impairment, distraction, and improper or lack of use of seatbelt. In September, Governor Hogan announced more than $1.6 million for Baltimore City agencies to help address highway safety. As we've talked about before, local jurisdictions are also encouraged to develop their own strategic highway safety plan, and I know that's something that you've been working on. That takes on the principles and overall goals of the statewide plan, but localizes them for the needs that you have. The bipartisan infrastructure law has also made funds available to develop local plans, and BMC, Baltimore Metropolitan Council, is actively working with local jurisdictions to provide you any additional support you may need, in addition to the support that our office would provide. MBA strives to be the best in the nation at everything we do. I'm so proud of our employees for everything they've done and delivering on that customer service promise that we've made, and continuing to think of new ways to evolve the MBA to better serve Marylanders. Thank you for your time, and I'll now turn it over to Harold Fowler at the Maryland Aviation Administration.
Thank you, Chrissy. BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport and Martin State Airport are important economic engines and the transportation resources for the state and Maryland in the Maryland region as a whole. Martin State Airport is a critical general aviation reliever airport providing important services to corporate, personal, air medical emergency, law enforcement, and military operators. BWI Marshall and our airline partners support commerce, including tourism, business development, and cargo operations. We do this while being a good neighbor. At BWI Marshall, we have a comprehensive noise program to help support our local communities, including a system with nearly 30 sophisticated noise monitors placed throughout the region. In August, the FAA presented proposed changes to these local flight procedures, as well as how we've created and supported the DC Metroplex BWI Community Roundtable, which has worked to make important changes to airline flight procedures near BWI Marshall to the benefit of our neighbors. The roundtable agreed with the FAA recommendations, agreed that they were consistent with their proposed changes, and voted to support the FAA's plan to move forward with these improvements. This was a critical step in bringing the important relief to nearby communities. We acknowledge and thank the roundtable for their diligent work and for successfully completing their mission. At BWI Marshall, airline and passenger traffic continue to rebound, trending at about 80% of pre-pandemic levels. And during certain peak travel periods, passenger traffic has approached levels not seen since before the pandemic. 3 new airlines have launched service at BWI Marshall in recent months, and several new or returning international and domestic airline routes have been added at BWI Marshall this year. Beyond passenger traffic, air cargo continues to be a bright spot for BWI Marshall. Last year, BWI Marshall set a new record for, Last year, BWI Marshall set a new annual record for cargo operations with more than 618 million pounds of cargo transported. That makes up more than 55% of the total air cargo flown through the region's 3 major commercial airports. We have several major capital projects underway that will add new services and amenities for our customers while also providing important facilities for our airline partners. Our $55 million improvement program is expanding and enhancing 6 sets of restrooms throughout the airport terminal. The improved facilities will help ensure an excellent passenger experience. Site development is currently underway for the creation of a major maintenance hangar for Southwest Airlines. As the first Southwest maintenance facility in the Northeast U.S., the hangar will accommodate 3 Boeing 737 aircraft, along with an exterior apron space for 8 more. and the major multi-year Concourse AB and baggage handling system program will transform the passenger experience and provide additional capacity for Southwest Airlines. The $425 million project is the largest single capital project in the airport's history. It will introduce a state-of-the-art baggage handling system, as well as new food and retail options, restrooms, and a direct connection between concourses A and B. In addition to these capital improvements, the IIJA provides $178 million for both BWI Marshall and Martin State Airport. The federal funding will advance important airfield improvement projects. The Maryland Aviation Administration will continue to support the 35 public use airports that serve communities across the state for the statewide aviation grants program that provides important state funding and support for airport improvement projects. MAA intends to administer $3.5 million in state grants during the fiscal year of 2023 for regional airports across Maryland. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Bill Doyle at the Port Administration.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Secretary Ports. Mr. Sharkey, thank you. And I personally want to say thank you for working with my staff recently on the issues that we have around Colgate Bridge and the highways leading in. It's really a pleasure working with you folks and you. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, 22 has been a very busy year for the Port of Baltimore. While the international maritime shipping industry continues to deal with pandemic impacts that have disrupted supply chains and manufacturing, the Port of Baltimore has added new services, welcomed diverted ships from other ports, and is working closely with our partner, Ports America Chesapeake, to accommodate current and future cargo demands at the Seagirt Marine Terminal. Recently, we've added 2 new services from the Mediterranean Shipping Company, also known as MSC. One, an around-the-world service between Asia and the Panama Canal, as well as the U.S. and Suez Canal. And the other one is through the Indian subcontinent and the Mediterranean. We also added a new service on Zim Shipping Lines, which is an e-commerce focused service from China and Southeast Asia to the East Coast and reflects our strong capabilities as the top e-commerce port in the country. Earlier this year, we put into operation 4 additional ultra-large Neo-Panamax container cranes. These cranes are part of a $166 million investment by Ports America Chesapeake at Seagirt Marine Terminal. Baltimore is now able to handle multiple supersized ships simultaneously. The additional cranes nicely complement the Howard Street Tunnel Expansion Project, which will allow for double-stack container rail cars and clearing long-time hurdle in the Port of Baltimore. It will give the East Coast seamless double-stack capacity. Those are 2 containers on top of each other on a train, from Maine to Florida and from the Port of Baltimore into the Ohio Valley. Construction is underway, and when it's completed in 2025, Baltimore will be able to send double-stack containers by rail into the Ohio Valley, Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, and Detroit, Michigan. Since the industry's restart last year, we have welcomed back both our year-round cruising partners, Carnival Cruise Lines and Royal Caribbean. We have worked very closely with the CDC and our cruise line partners on the most current health and safety protocols and to make our cruise terminal as safe as can be for all passengers, crew members, and workers from the port. I'm happy to tell you that the people have come back to cruising to the Port of Baltimore in a big way and have had a full capacity of ships consistently since the restart last year. People continue to love the ease of driving right into Baltimore, down to the port, get on the cruise ship, and start cruising. These is a quick snapshot of what we're doing at the Port of Baltimore, and now let me toss it back to Secretary Ports. Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you our 6-year Consolidated Transportation Program. And now I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Steve for any questions that you or anyone else may have.
Thank you, Secretary Ports, and thank you to all the esteemed members of your staff. Thank you for working with us, and thank you for coming today to present to us, Transportation Geek Fest 2022, right? So exciting news. So want to take this moment to just give elected officials in-house to come up and speak. So we'll start with any state senators or delegates, and they can come up here and speak at this microphone.
Good afternoon. Sorry for my attire. I've got to head someone right after. So on behalf of, first of all, the Baltimore City Delegation Chair, Stephanie Smith, who could not be here, she apologizes, as well as our first Vice Chair, Tony Smith, who is also both members of the Appropriation Committee. He had a couple of questions. Do forgive me if they were answered in a broader way that I did not hear, because I did come a little late, and would respectfully ask, could you also share those responses with them by email, if I don't capture it all? I appreciate it. Delegate Bridges wanted to know, let me get my notes, the new lots, the locally operated transit systems formula. What does that mean for jurisdictions without large local systems? The formula is going to be based on existing ridership, which means the places with existing systems will get funds to grow and improve their operations. What does it mean for places like the city and county that may want to grow their local systems? Of course, the Purple Line jurisdictions are getting a new line that will dramatically improve ridership on ancillary services. Our line was canceled, and now we won't have the ability to apply for those funds.
I can take that one. So
Yes.
yes, so MTA, our locally operated transit systems, our LOTS formula. To be fair, I'm not entirely sure how some of it was based, right? Like it goes back years and years, and the historians at the agency aren't there anymore, and so we're not sure how that was developed. And so we've been working internally to develop an updated formula that pretty closely mirrors the FTA formula. So FTA has their formula that they look at in terms of how funds are allocated based on ridership, based on population density. There's a huge number of factors that go into that. And so we think that, hey, the federal governments have done a pretty good job, and we're going to mirror what they've done. So we should have a draft that is out for comment. So we're looking for feedback later this month to get an understanding from folks in terms of, hey, does this work? Does it not work? Is it reflective of what we're seeing today? But I will say, in terms of existing service versus new service, similarly to the federal government, you don't get funding for new service until you've reported it to NTD. So you run it for 2 years, then you report to NTD, and then it shows up in the formula. So it's about a 3-year process.
So it would. I'm sorry. So based on expanding the new formula, it would manage what we already have. Although we do need expansion and haven't had it due to funding or other concerns. So we would have to manage and improve for 2 years, right, and then when we want to expand, we'll be able to expand potentially.
And report that to NTD, which is a National Transit Database that's run by the federal government.
Okay.
Yeah, and happy to. So we haven't actually put out the draft yet. So once it comes out, I will make sure that you guys get a copy of it.
Yes, and especially.
And we'll be happy to explain that further if,
no problem.
if Delegate Bridges would like.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
No problem. The new IIJA funds have been pre-programmed by the outgoing administration. From their press conference, $1.3 billion in new IIJ federal formula funding, $170 million for airports, $166 million for transit, and $966 million for highways. That's 5.8 times as much for highways than transit. MDOT could flex highway money for use on transit projects. How much has been flexed, and or why none of it has been flexed?
So let me take that one.
Yes.
So those priorities that you just outlined, and I'll just use the two, we'll forget airport for a second, but the $166 million for transit and the $900 and some million for highways. See, a $966 for highways. That's not our priorities. That's not the Hogan administration priorities. That's the priorities that came from Congress and the president. So when they created the IIJA bill, they are the ones that prioritized highways, and they tell us how the formula funds must be spent in what categories. So they're the ones that made the priorities.
Is there an ability to flex?
No. No, the way it works is they kind of tell us the categories. So when you're receiving federal funds, it's kind of like mom and dad with allowance with the kid. I'm going to tell you how to spend it. And so that's what they do. They tell us which categories or modes, or in our case, TBUs, can utilize the funds and for what purpose. They set the rules, in other words.
And I guess a follow-up question to that would be, of the $99.6 million for highways, for instance, would that fund current projects and future, or is that all future?
So the way that the IIJA funds work, it's a 5-year program. Now, you know, our STIP or our CTP process is a 6-year program. So let me back up. The IIJA funds is just another way to talk about all of our formula funds. As I mentioned, most of that is already in the formula funds that we had in the CTP for 22 through 27, which also carries into 23 through 28.
Okay.
And then the extra funds are also programmed in this CTP for 28.
Okay.
And then in the out years, there'll be other funds available as the feds start giving us money. So along with them telling us kind of the categories that we get to spend the money in, they also tell us in many cases, not all, but in many cases, what years we can spend it in. So some are like, if there's a 5-year program, it's split exactly 5 ways. Some it's front-loaded, some it's back-loaded. So it just depends on the program, but we'd have to go through each one of those to show you.
So do you know a rough ratio of new compared to current projects that it would fund?
Sure. So we got $19.9 billion over our 6-year program. 1.3 billion of those is IIJA new monies, if you will. Now, there's also discretionary grants, which they're competitive, so we have not received those funds. That they're competitive, so you have to put in for the grant, and hopefully you get it. We've been very successful with previous grants for Baltimore City, as was mentioned by Holly and the mayor, and we'll continue to try and compete for those, so that'll be extra up and above. There's also opportunities for local governments, local grants only, that the state cannot put in for. We cannot be a part of it. You would have to put in for those, and I give you an example. One of those is like for sidewalks, safe sidewalks, and the city can literally apply directly to the federal government, and that's 100% funding, no matching funds. So we'll be happy to work with you on some of those programs and show you which ones are which, so to help you be successful.
So, because I'm a little slow, so the highway user fund, these highway funds then are not necessarily what I hear you saying, highway, it could be for other projects relating to.
So the highway funds have to be used for highways.
Definitely, okay, but you mentioned the grants.
The transit funds have to be used for transit and airport for airport.
So the
and then there'll be port grants too. And
right. So again, based on your last number, the ratio then is maybe 80-20, 90-10. I mean, I'm trying to, sounds like more like a 90-10.
I think it's, what is it, Sam? Is about 87% for highways. I think that's the math. Around 87% is prioritized for highways. But again, that's, the House, the Senate, and the President that determined that.
Yes, sir. Okay. And then there's 2 more, then I promise I'm done. Is the state starting work on these projects before the new CPT is approved? Is the outgoing administration trying to tie the new administration to their priorities and projects?
So the CTP process is in law, okay?
Sure.
One is we got to visit all 24 jurisdictions, 23 counties, Baltimore City between September 15th and November 15th. The rest of the way we determine formula funding is in state law. And so we continue to follow the state law accordingly. And as I mentioned, some of the funds will be spent this year because some of them have to be spent this year. And then there'll be opportunities to spend in the out years. There'll also be discretionary grants that are in the out years. For example, some of the deadlines are in September for this year. So many of the local jurisdictions aren't going to be ready for that. So they'll have 4 more years to obligate some of those monies. So we can't obligate those.
Sure. And could you give me, or us, I should say, an example of something that would be essentially begun versus something that would be, or a jurisdiction that has to kind of extend out for the next 4 years?
Off the top of my head, Tier 2 Bay Bridge study. That's probably a 4 or possibly a 5-year NEPA process to determine the corridor study for the Bay Bridge. We put those funds in because that's a project we have to move forward with. I think the next administration would also be happy to move forward with that. And so those monies are programmed, and they'll be programmed over the next 5 years. So yes, that's a perfect example.
Okay. And it looks like I have the last one here. CPT is not essentially broken down by jurisdiction. MTA is the main provider of public transportation to the Baltimore region. How much of the capital construction and operating budget is being spent outside of our region on the Purple Line? And then more to the point, when you remove the Purple Line construction costs, how much is actually being spent in Baltimore?
So I'm going to have to follow up with you on that. I don't have the percentages off the top of my head.
Okay. I'm sure you can find
I will say
We can find it. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
I will say this, many years ago, actually, when I was in the House of Delegates, the Montgomery County jurisdiction put in a bill for transit equity.
Sure.
Okay? And you probably seen some recent bills, I believe, put in by Delegate Corman, who also mandated WMATA funding. So a lot of that funding is technically not determined by us because we're mandated to put certain amounts of money into WMATA, we're mandated to put some certain amounts of money into Purple Line, and we have to have parity between the DC Transit and the Baltimore Transit.
Yes, sir.
By law.
Yes. Thank you. And you said you'll research that and send that?
Yeah.
Yes.
And respectfully, I can send you some of these questions. Could you also put that in writing to the delegate?
Absolutely.
I'll send those to you. And then I actually had a question. I'm finished doing Delegate Bridges' work.
Wow.
He's
lucky.
He is lucky. He is lucky. You mentioned the automation of the tolls. I wanted to know the workers. Is there a transition for them to have employment elsewhere? And what is your plan for that so they're not necessarily out of a job?
Yeah. So I can start that, and Will can probably go ahead and add on to it if I say anything wrong, Will. But we worked very hard over the past 3 years, or 4 years maybe, to make sure that all of our toll collectors had a safe landing. As you know, when Easy Pass was introduced, or actually it was MTAG, they started using automated toll booths, and at that time they were laying off people, right? And they may not have had such a soft landing.
Right.
When Governor Schaefer switched from 2 toll booths, one on each side of the road, to 1, it was the same type thing where they had to find other opportunities. What we've done, and quite frankly, it was a little more difficult because day 1 when COVID hit, we had to protect them. We had to get them out of the toll booths, and we had to protect the traveling public. So we took them out of the booths. Then the decision was made to go to all electronic. Well, I should back up. We were going to go to all electronic, but not that quickly. Okay, it forced our hand to go much quicker than we anticipated. We use those as CARA. They work in some of our customer service areas. And then we are looking for opportunities Some of those were contractors, which obviously they didn't work for us technically, or for the state, I should say. They had other opportunities with their employers, but the ones that were state employees, I believe we found jobs, or I mean, some of them retired, obviously, through attrition, but I believe we're finding jobs for every one of them, right, Will?
That is correct, yeah. So when we were at the height of cash collection, we had hundreds of toll collectors. We now have around 20, don't hold me to the exact number, left that we're still working with a career counselor to help identify their interests within state government and place them in jobs. But we've a really great showcase example, toll collector manager that we have down near our Nicebridge region. We sent her to college, trained her up, put her in really great leadership role down there. So we've worked hard to develop them, put all of our toll collection staff into great job opportunities. Everything like Jim mentioned, our customer service representatives for the in-person services at our Easy Pass stop-in centers, but we also have placed them in dispatch jobs for our police. If you debris in the roadway, you call the police, they're answering phones. They're doing receptionist, administrative jobs, you name it. We've placed them all throughout the authority wherever we can.
Positioned well.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
More pay.
And we've also, we have one gentleman that did a whole new career change and ended up working our HR area. I mean, he became one of our ambassadors. Unfortunately, we lost him to COVID. But my point was, we sent him to college. He decided he wanted to work in HR. We put him through the training program in HR. He did a fabulous job, and literally became one of what we call our ambassadors to help other employees, toll collectors I'm talking about, other toll collectors, to see the advantage that we were giving them for college education and career path changes. So I think we created a really good program on that. We've worked hard on it, and I think we've done a good job with it.
Yeah, they've had great jobs. I mean, I just signed to have one move into our IT department to help with inventory controls. I mean, you name it, pretty much every division in the authority has picked up somebody who's been in a toll collector
Some
history.
of them worked at MVA.
Come
Some of them we transferred to MVA, and they became frontline folks on the MVA system. So I mean, and I think we had some go to SHA for facilities and kind of like jobs in the trades and getting their CDL and stuff like that. I think we've got a really successful program with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And thank you so much. And I think the terminology Secretary Ports, is it hoorah?
Hoorah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Lewis.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm Delegate Robin Lewis. I represent the 46th District. You guys are all in my district right now. I trust you'll behave while you're here.
And we'll spend lots of money.
No objection to that. Thank you so much to the mayor's team. Thank you, Director Sharkey. Thank you, Secretary Ports and your team. So being a transit nerd, this is one of the high points of my year, this meeting. And I appreciate the work that all of you do. It's not easy, but it's so important, connecting people to jobs, educational opportunities, and access to health care. So we're all on the same team in that regard, so thank you. I did have a couple of, I did want to say to start, also in addition to thanking you for what you guys do every day, it's clear that there's a great partnership happening between MDOT and Baltimore City DOT. That's also incredibly important. It is the secret sauce that makes everything else work, and I know we'll continue to see that level of partnership and cooperation. Thank you for that. As someone who uses transit most days of the week, because I'm car-free by choice, but about 30% of my constituents are car-free, not necessarily by choice. I think a lot about how the transit system works, so I pay a lot of attention to MTA. I wanted to thank you guys for the work you're doing, Administrator Arnold, on improving bus shelters. I have noticed the increase in really nice physically, like new bus shelters. It is tangible improvement, and that's great. Thank you, in addition to the other things. To Baltimore City DOT, I wanted to congratulate you on all of the federal grants you've received. I didn't realize there was a second raise grant. Nice. Keep doing that. We're here to support you. MVA, I wanted to salute you also for the online driver's license renewal process. I was blown away. I got the reminder, and when I read it through, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to go wait in line. Terrific. So I look forward to having a gorgeous new photo on my driver's license.
And you get to look young for 16 years.
Forever, I think. So I like that you noticed that I looked young,
I love it too.
Secretary Ports. So, but really, all of that means a lot. Partnership, working together. Thank you. Now I'm going to start complaining. Okay. So I noticed that, and I quickly scanned through this enormous report. I've learned a little bit better how to read this. And so I was able to quickly look at the MTA budget, which is sort of where my attention is. And what I see, looking at the MTA budget over the next 6 years, the CTP program years, is a decline in the MTA's overall budget. And unless I'm reading that wrong, I'm just a lowly health professional, but I think I can count and see that fiscal 2023 MTA's total budget is $870 million, and then 6 years from now in fiscal 2028, it goes down to $550 million. That's a $320 million decline. That raised the question for me, how is MTA going to meet the $2 billion backlog that we estimated a couple years ago in state of good repair, basic operations? How are we going to get there with a budget that's declining? Now, I realize, Secretary Arnold, you mentioned that some of the improvements have been, the funding's been allocated and those improvements are being done, so maybe the money's being spent, maybe we'll get there, but please help a lowly member of the Health and Government Operations Committee understand the numbers. Thank
Sure.
you.
So I think part of it, but I'll let Hallie really delve into it, but I think part of it is we've made a tremendous progress with buying new cars, right? So new light rail cars, new heavy rail cars, or MARC trains, I should say. And when you invest in those vehicles, your budget goes way up, right? But then when you don't need more new vehicles, it comes down because you don't need
You've
to buy
made the
new
purchase,
vehicles, right?
right.
It's like when you buy a car, right? Well, I guess you don't buy a car, but if someone buys a car, you have a real big expense at the beginning, and then you go over a few years, and then boom, you don't have a car payment, right? Well, it's sort of the same thing there, but I'll let Holly expand on any of that.
Yeah, I think Secretary Boyce captured it well. So right now we have the Metro new rail car project in the CTP, which is $400 million, but that only happens once every 40 years.
Well, right.
I will also note that, if you look back historically at the CTP, we're typically pretty front-loaded in the first couple of years of the CTP. We spend a lot more, and then as projects move and adjust, the funding gets shifted around. And as I said in my remarks, we are projected to be 98% funded for our state of good repair needs over the next 10 years.
Okay, that's reassuring. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So
Good
when I see
question,
that,
though.
yeah. Well, I'm just looking at numbers and trying to.
Tell you're looking at it, and it's
Fine.
good, yeah.
Thank you. Leaving aside the MTA overall budget, I wanted to turn to the minor projects budget for SHA. And I think it kind of hurts my feelings because, Baltimore is the minor projects. It just feels personal. However, it's really not. When I look at this, I see the Hanover Street Bridge repair and resurfacing, which it looks like is at $3 million, programmed cost to be completed in fiscal '23. I want to, because my constituents will be asking me, when are you guys going to fix this bridge? The Hanover Street Bridge is in the 46th district, and it's an important connecting, line between south of the bridge and above. That part of the city often feels cut off, and a discombobulated bridge, it's like a symbol of how little we care about them. So I would love to be able to tell them we're going to have a gorgeous new bridge. What will this project deliver for us?
So I think if we go back in history, I think Steve will back me up on this, way before I was born, and that's a long time ago, by the way. The way that the legislature set up the funding for the state roads, I should say state highways, versus the city is the city got a larger portion of HURs, and for that, the state does not does not maintain the city roads. And so, again, that's an agreement that happened many, many moons ago. We basically follow that law. So it's really up to the city to try and determine what kind of bridge, what's it going to look like, the planning and design work. Until all of that is completed by the city, I don't know what the answer is at this point, but that work's got to be done. It's sort of like, I think there's $10 million that the legislature gave us, MDOT, for ADA advancements, but it's up to the city to tell us what they're going to fund so that we can create the MOU to move things forward. So we need to have that partnership where the city does their, I don't know if you would call it pre-planning, planning, design of some of the projects, and then we can create the MOU, and then we can give you the money, you know, but that's got to happen first.
So where are we? What do I tell my constituents when they call and tell me their axle broke while they were on their way to work on the Hanover Street
Yes,
Bridge?
the city where we are with the planning and design.
Yeah, Delegate, that $3 million is part of some ongoing work. So there's a new bascule span over the past 4 years. BMAL 3 years ago, 2 years ago, bascule span. That's the metal part, as well as
Technical term? What is
Yeah,
that?
it must be.
is that the right term, BMAL? Yeah. See, check it out.
All right. Nerd on.
So that's the metal part. That's, if you'll notice, that is not falling in on itself as it was when I first started here, as well as underpinning of the bridge is undergoing right now. So that's what a lot of the bumps are. The bridge is that. So these are some short-term improvements to just make the bridge livable, passable at the time. But the Hanover Street Bridge is a long-term project that will require well over $100 million that we are in planning stages for, and we'd be happy to meet with you to describe some more of where we stand on the future planning for that project.
Thank you. That's helpful because it at least lets me, it allows me to tell my constituents we're working on it. Okay.
But however, I would like to suggest, if I could, the federal, under the IIJA, and they do have a discretionary program where for major bridge, they have a major bridge program that this one may fall under. And that's a 50-50 split. So the local government put 50% in, the feds will pay 50%, and that's where you can save a lot of money if we can get the planning and design ready to go and work with the feds on trying to get those discretionary grants. So that may be an opportunity, Delegate.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
And then with the other minor projects listed here under the Transportation Alternatives Program, I think Administrator Arnold, you referred to these, the Jones Falls Trail, bike ped route, and then you listed some improvements at some elementary schools. Was it? I'm sorry, did I
It was
misspeak?
Tim. That's okay.
No worries.
Tim Smith.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Oh, that's right, SHA.
No problem.
Alphabet soup.
Yeah, we got a lot of people here.
One of the schools you mentioned, I think Tench Tillman, it's not in my district, but a lot of kids who live in my district do go to school there. What exactly are these alternative programs that are projects that are being implemented at the schools? What does it look like? Is it complete streets? What is it?
Well, it's a couple different things. One's just ADA compliance
ADA,
with
gotcha.
the sidewalks and making sure folks with special needs can get in and out of the streets. And I'm happy to follow up and give you some more details. But typically, it's a pass through from us to the city for the dollar amount. So actually, the city might have some details as well. But happy to.
I see it's
talk to
still
you
under design, in the design phase.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm want to thank you for your answer. If I'm not mistaken, you also mentioned a Safe Routes to School
Correct.
initiative. Is that connected to this or separate?
Safe routes to school was for, sorry, I have to refer to my notes here.
That's okay.
Well, I think you said it provides a safe route to school, but I don't know that you said it was a safe route to school program. I'm not sure.
Right, because I'm not sure we have a safe route to school program in the city.
Well, see, Safe Route to School used to be separate from the Transportation Alternatives Program. Now it's all under the same umbrella, but sometimes we refer to it just so folks kind of can connect the dots on their own. But with that was related to Pimlico Elementary.
Got it. And that's helpful. I had a little bill this year that included some provisions for safe routes to school funding for the city. So, well, I guess we'll get to work on that. Thank you.
Also want to mention what I mentioned earlier about the sidewalk, the discretionary grants for sidewalks, which is, ADA compliance and all that stuff. So one, we have that $10 million, but two, the feds have a discretionary grant, which, as I mentioned earlier, is 100%
right
federal funded. So if you can get the planning and design ready to go, then you can put in for those discretionary grants. I think you would have a tremendous opportunity to win some of those grants, and so that's just another option.
Thank you.
And we'll be glad to give you more information on that.
I appreciate it. I think I neglected to salute Mr. Ports of the Ports Administration. Is he still? Did we lose him?
Bill Doyle.
Sorry, Mr. Ports.
Yeah, everybody does it. I can't tell you how many times that happens.
I'm looking at your name sign.
I know.
But Mr. Doyle of the Ports Administration, I just wanted to salute the work that you're doing, and I wanted to thank you for highlighting the importance of the expansion of our tunnels so that we can move more cargo. It is important not just for, having an effective transportation system, but for all the job creation, not just in our region, but, nationwide. It's so important. I wanted to salute you and your team for making sure that gets done well.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, other than that, I'd like to propose that as we work together over the next few years to make the best use of the resources we have coming from the feds and the decisions we make at the state level, that we think about how to creatively reapply funds dedicated for highway or designated for highway by the federal government, use those creatively to implement and support Complete Streets Initiative statewide. I think you'll find a very friendly and supportive legislature to help do that. And last but not least, see you guys on the bus soon, because you're going to come ride with me and just for a little refresher on how exciting and lovely it is. Thank you. Thank you so much. On all seriousness, I do appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Any other elected officials? I do not see any other state delegates, so Councilwoman Ramos, please feel free to come up.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Secretary, Director, Administrator Arnold. Thanks everybody for being here as well, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I have a couple of things. One is Administrator Arnold, I appreciate all the work that you're helping us with on the student safety side of the bus issue. It is really critical for our young people. I don't know if you've made your announcement about the campaign, but I just wanted to.
Next week, it's coming.
Oh, okay, well then I won't spoil it. But I'm glad you're doing it. So I won't spoil it, but I'm very excited about it. So I do want to let you know I was just at a meeting with DOT and the principal of City College at the corner of where the kids come in and out of school and the cars, and it's a little bit of a mess, so we're going to work on that. But I was able to talk with some young people and one of the teachers about the app. They came up to me and said, "Hey, can you do something about the app on the around the MTA?" And I will admit fully, I'm still a car person, so I don't know. So they were showing me that the particular teacher I was talking with was looking for bus 53. and then it was tracking, and then it disappeared, and then it was tracking, and then it disappeared, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's the bus right there. So for some reason, the tracking is still not working well, whether it's the app or whether there's some of the buses that don't have a tracking mechanism actually on them to be able to show up on the app. Is that something that you're working on through some of the technology upgrades here?
Yes, I'm really curious. We tend to have the most issues when buses divert, right? Because our whole system is built on like expecting things to go a certain way, right? We expect the buses to be on this route, and it kind of double checks based on the GPS locations where they are and assumes that it's the bus on that route. So I'm wondering if the 53 may have had a diversion, but I can have our team check into that. And we did actually.
So she said that this happens a lot. So it's not. Yeah. I mean, it also could just be that's rush hour for kids and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we hired this year a full-time dedicated person to do real time, and so I am very happy to have them come up to City College, meet with the teacher, and take a look and see if they can understand what's going on. It's really helpful for us to, if anyone ever has issues, send us screenshots, so that we can understand and really dig into those issues.
Yeah, because some of the young people were sitting next to us, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this happens all the time." So given that at that particular school, only 30% of the kids get picked up. The rest of them go on their way through the bus system, which is significant. We want to make sure that works well. So I appreciate that. I just happened to be that I knew you were going to be here. So I wanted to mention that as well. Also, I'm really excited that we were able to work with MACO and other jurisdictions to increase the city's highway user revenues. This is big for us. It's huge. So I want to thank you all for also backing us up on that. It's not enough. We have, deferred maintenance, without that money for the last few years, it's $900 million that we should have had. So we really need to work with you all on figuring out how we're going to be able to backfill those dollars. We still have, I have the Hartford Road Bridge that's about to open. I have, in my district has the most requests for traffic calming so that people are able to cross the street safely. We need dollars for that. We just talked about the Hanover Bridge. So it's going to be really critical to figure out what's the best. I mean, since the two toll collecting tunnels are in our in our city, we should be getting some of that revenue. I mean, we really need to start talking about how we can get back some of that $900 million that we were owed, basically, to be able to address it. So I don't know if you all have been thinking about that with the director, but I'm just going to say we need more money. I'm happy about HUR. I'm going to keep fighting for more HUR. As people start using more electric cars and not gas, then we're going to have to solve that problem. But we need more money.
So let me address that just a little bit. So you all used to get HURs on a regular basis.
Yep.
It was cut by 90% by the previous administration. And Governor Hogan has tried his darndest to increase that over an 8-year period. Actually, he started with a 4-year period. And then he tried, after he got reelected, to try and do it for an 8-year period. Many of the early bills that he put in for got voted down. They did not want to increase the HURs. The first time I believe the HURs were increased were in the first re-election of Governor Hogan. So it was election year, right? So that's when a lot of good things happen, as you know. And that's when the first increase began. And we've been trying to fight, to get more and more each year. Now, this past year, not only did the legislature put a bill in, Governor Hogan put bills in, what they did is they compromised. And we got 33% more than what our original bill was. So we've been working hard to increase that, but obviously there's only so much money. Right? There's only so much money you can have. And so while we're putting money into projects, the only way to increase HURs is to take money out of projects, and nobody wants to do that. So what we're trying to do is fund HURs, fund HURs, fund HURs over a period of time. But had we had the 8 years to do it, it probably would have been up to about where it was before. Unfortunately, we didn't have the full 8 years to do it, so we are where we are. But I'm sure that people will continue to look to increase that, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I certainly have had conversations with the presumptive governor nominee. He is my constituent. So that's amazing. It's awesome, actually. So, we have had these conversations, but I think it's important that, we think this through a little bit more in terms of because we have to be a little bit creative too. I understand that, so hopefully we can start that process real soon, because I know my constituents want a lot of traffic calming, and this money has to pay for that, plus all of the other state of good repair stuff that we are in dire need,
Right.
because that money was pretty much, it was terrible. It was horrible. Yes. And then the last thing, I just have to put in the plug around, it's been a little frustrating since the Red Line was canceled a few years ago, that now we're starting up a new process around the east-west transit, and hopefully that, I know a lot of neighbors are starting to get more engaged in that, but it has been very frustrating because it's like redoing the entire thing. So just understand that has been a source of frustration for our city, in terms of not having, when we talk about equity, you have the Purple Line in, Washington, D.C. area, but then completely cancel us in Baltimore City, and that certainly was not a fun opportunity for us. But we're looking forward to the future, and thank you all for everything that you've been doing. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Director, and thank you.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just address that a little bit.
Sure thing.
So, obviously, to create a new system of rail, it would take many, many years.
Sure.
But there, in my opinion, are some short-term fixes. As a matter of fact, I spoke to the mayor and Director Sharkey down in Mako about a potential fix. And it could be that we, for example, take Baltimore Street, turn all those lanes into a bus, bike, and pedestrian lanes only, and you can run the buses back and forth all day long. Get them off of Pratt and Lombard, which that way they wouldn't compete
Sure.
with cars. So you could have a really quick transit way with buses, again, all day long, getting people to jobs, school, everything. If that is successful, which I think it would be, because again, you could do bus, bike, and pedestrian, then we could, and since Baltimore Street's like one of the streets, it's right in the middle of the city, and obviously Charles is the other one. If we were to be successful there, then what we could probably do is take another street about 4 to 5 blocks up, and possibly streets north and south, and we could have a grid that would be bus, bike, and pedestrian only, not have them compete with cars, have the buses get to their destinations much quicker, and we could do that program much faster if we work in cooperation, or if the city works with us in cooperation and partnership on a program like that. I think that's something we could do very quickly and effectively, and we could accomplish the goals that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I look forward to working through that process, and it will just take a lot of money. So
Right.
We're hoping to get some more of that too. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right. Thank you all for coming today. This is, do you have any closing moments?
I'm good.
Yep. Okay. So thank you for all coming today. All you folks that love transportation and transit, you got a good day of learning today and fun stuff. So I want to thank the secretary, the mayor, and everybody for coming together, and look forward to future partnerships and working together more and more on all modes of transit. Thank you.